The rain fell in soft, steady sheets against the glass dome of the atrium. The city outside had quieted into its nighttime hum when Sophia finally looked up from her glowing laptop screen. She blinked, realizing she was the last one there. The office was silent desks, dark, monitors asleep, even reception empty. "Great," she muttered, slipping on her heels. They echoed lightly as she crossed to the elevator and pressed the button. Nothing. She pressed again. Still nothing. With unease prickling her skin, she checked her phone dead. Her stomach tightened. She tried the back stairwell door, but it was locked. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Not hurried. Not surprised. Measured. Deliberate. Her breath caught. Andrew appeared at the end of the hallway. Not in his usual sharp suit, but in dark slacks. And a crisp white shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled back. His face was unreadable, his presence heavy. Didn't realize someone was still here. He said, his voice low but weighted. Sophia straightened. "I didn't mean to. Stay so late." I didn't realize he stepped closer, his eyes steady on hers. "The building locks down at 9. Automatic system. You can't get out until security resets at 6. 6. Her voice cracked slightly. He gave the smallest nod, eyes never leaving hers. Then he reached past her, fingers brushing the door, and turned the deadbolt with a soft click. "But," he said quietly, "there's one room that doesn't lock." Her pulse jumped. Fear should have gripped her, but it didn't. She couldn't explain why her body didn't move away. Andrew walked down the hall with deliberate calm, then paused, glancing back. "Are you coming?" Her feet moved before her mind caught up. He led her into his private office, spacious, elegant, its marble desk gleaming under soft golden light. The silence was so deep she could hear only her own breathing. When he shut the door behind them, the lock slid into place. He leaned against his desk, eyes fixed on her, sharp yet warm. "Sophia," he said, voice low, "you've been avoiding me." She opened her mouth to deny it, but something in his gaze silenced her. "You're careful, smart, hard-working, but I see you." His tone deepened. The space between them seemed to close. "I see how your eyes drop when I walk into the room, how you hold your breath when I pass you." Heat rose to her cheeks. Her hands trembled, but she couldn't step back. "You think I don't notice, Sophia?" His voice was almost a whisper now. "I notice everything in my office." Her chest tightened as if he had peeled back every layer of composure she wore. Then he reached for her. He didn't touch her, not quite. His fingers hovered near her wrist, and still her skin burned as if he had. "Have you ever been kissed in a place like this?" he asked softly. Sophia shook her head. He stepped behind her, so close that his breath brushed her ear. "Have you ever let someone show you what happens when you stop being so careful?" Her lungs caught. She could barely breathe. With slow precision, he brushed her hair back from her shoulder. "Tell me to stop, Sophia." She didn't. His hands slid to her hips, firm, commanding, and he turned her toward the glass wall of his office. "Look," he whispered. "You can see yourself, her." Reflection stared back, wide eyes, parted lips, his tall frame just behind her. His mouth touched her neck, warm, deliberate, and her knees nearly gave way. He caught her easily, steadying her as if he already knew she would fall. "No one will come," he murmured, and in that moment she believed him when he lifted her onto his desk, golden light falling across her skin, her skirt rising as his mouth lingered at her throat. Something inside her broke free. She had never been touched like this, never been consumed with such quiet, practiced hunger. She wasn't the overlooked intern anymore. In that locked office, under the glow of city lights, she belonged entirely to him. The days that followed, blurred together. Sophia drifted through meetings and deadlines as though she were walking on air, the memory of his touch woven into every breath she took. She could still hear the soft click of the lock, still feel the way he had claimed her. In silence, but Andrew was different. Colder, not unkind, not dismissive controlled. In meetings, his tone was purely professional. His gaze never lingered. It was as if nothing had happened. Yet, in the quiet moments in the hallway when his hand brushed hers as he passed her a file, when his shoulder brushed hers by accident, there it was. That tension, that restrained feral heat beneath his calm exterior. Every time, it unraveled her a little more. By Thursday night, everything shifted. Sophia had stayed late again, the Rome Hotel project glowing across her monitor. The office was dark, hushed. Her eyes ached from staring at blueprints when she finally reached for her bag. A voice behind her made her spine stiffen. "You're still here." She turned. Andrew stood at the edge of her cubicle, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a tumbler filled with something dark, the amber liquid catching the faint light. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes told a different story. Andrew's jacket was gone, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled to his forearms. The open collar revealed a sliver of his chest, the faint line of his collarbone. Sophia's throat tightened. Just finishing the terrace layout, she managed. He tilted his head, studying her. "Come with me." She followed without question, her heels clicking sharply in the empty corridor. The glass-walled conference room loomed ahead, lit by the soft glow of the city outside. Neon signs painted the skyline in streaks of red, while the ceiling lights above cast a muted golden haze. "Close the door," he said. She did. Andrew moved slowly, methodically, lowering the blinds until the room was cloaked in shadows and firelight. He didn't look at her right away, only out the window. "You wore that skirt on purpose," he said finally, his tone like velvet over steel. Sophia glanced down at the fitted pencil skirt hugging her frame. "I didn't think," he turned, his gaze cutting her words in half. "Don't lie to me, not in here." Her breath caught. She couldn't bring herself to speak. He crossed the room in 2 strides, stopping only when her back pressed against the edge of the long table. "I told myself that night was a mistake," he said, voice low, frayed with restraint, "that I wouldn't touch you again." His hands hovered at her sides, not yet touching. "But then you walked past my office this morning, and your perfume stayed long after you'd gone, and I knew." His jaw flexed. "I'd break every rule for you." Her pulse hammered in her ears. His hands rose, brushing up her arms before cupping her face. His thumbs traced the curve of her lips. "Say no," he whispered, "and I'll stop." But she didn't. The kiss came slow, deliberate, a promise and a warning. His mouth claimed hers with a heat that stole the air from her lungs. Her body yielded, pressing against him, her heart racing so loudly she was sure he could hear it. The city burned red beyond the glass, their reflections caught in the window's dark sheen. In that moment, Sophia didn't see an office, or rules, or consequences. She saw only him, his hands anchoring her, his presence surrounding her. The dangerous pull she no longer had the will to resist. The ballroom lights dimmed as the last of the guests slipped out. Sophia lingered near the champagne fountain, her pulse racing. Knowing he hadn't left, he came up behind her, his voice low and commanding, just above a whisper. Walk to the elevator. Don't look back. Her heels clicked softly on the marble floor as she obeyed. The mirrored doors opened, revealing a private elevator lined in gold trim and deep velvet. She pressed 33. The ride felt like forever. Her reflection staring back at her, cheeks flushed with expectation. When the doors opened, the private floor stretched before her, quiet, elegant, dimly lit by chandeliers. At the end of the hallway, a door stood open. Inside, his office looked different this time. The desk was pushed back, the lighting softer, warmer. A leather couch waited in the corner. Jazz hummed low from hidden speakers, and Androcum, composer, stood by the window with a glass in his hand, the city skyline burning behind him. For a long moment, he just studied her, his gaze steady, unwavering. Then he set the glass down, crossed the room, and stopped close, enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. You came, he said, his tone both statement and promise. Sophia's breath hitched. She couldn't trust her voice, so she only nodded. Andrew's hand brushed hers, just that small touch into the air between them felt charged. Dangerous, impossible to ignore. The bottle of wine sat open between them, a ruby glow under the golden light. Sit, Andrew said quietly. He poured for her, handing her the crystal glass. Sophia's fingers trembled slightly as she accepted it. You haven't asked me why, he murmured after a long silence. Her brow furrowed. Why, what? Why, I want you. His eyes never wavered. Her lips parted, but no words came. Because I see everything you try to hide, he said softly, stepping closer. And it makes me want to strip away every layer until there's nothing left between us. He moved behind her, his hands brushing her shoulders firm, yet unexpectedly gentle. You're brilliant, Sophia, but you're also full of fear. Let me take that from you. The brush of his lips at her neck made her shiver. For tonight, she asked, her voice barely audible. He smiled faintly. Then you'll have to come back for more. Andrew lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the wide chair near his desk. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to unravel her, to make her forget every wall she had built around herself. When she finally collapsed against the leather, her chest rising and falling fast, he knelt before her, his breathing as ragged as hers. You'll remember this, he said quietly. She already knew he was right. The wide glass doors stood open, letting the sea breeze carry the sound of distant waves into the villa. The air was warm, tinged with orange blossom and amber. Andrew stood barefoot at the far end of the living room, dressed simply in a loose white shirt and drawstring trousers. His eyes locked on her the moment she entered, and the silence between them was charged. He didn't greet her. He simply walked forward, unhurried, his presence filling the space. When he reached her, he circled slowly behind, his hand brushing her waist, his lips grazing the edge of her ear. You came, he murmured, her breath caught. Yes, take off your shoes. She obeyed, her pulse quickening. His fingers lifted her hair, gathering it loosely before brushing it over one shoulder. His lips pressed against the back of her neck, his voice low, deliberate. From this moment on, you don't think, you feel. You don't ask, you receive. You don't speak unless you need me to stop. Her voice was almost a whisper. Won't ask you to stop. His mouth curved faintly against her skin. I know. He led her through the villa, each room quiet and immaculate, glowing in the golden afternoon light. Yet he didn't take her to the bedroom. Instead, he stopped at a long hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond the glass dot. At the center stood a velvet chaise, illuminated like a stage. Andrew's hands traced the fabric of her dress, lifting it slowly, deliberately. The world outside the glass felt far away. Here, there was only him, his measured pace, his gaze that left her trembling, and the unspoken promise in the air. "You belong to me this weekend," he said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. Every breath, every moment, every second, Sophia's heart thundered as he lowered her gently onto the chaise, the ocean lights spilling around them. She didn't need to see what came next, to know this was a line she could never uncross, and she didn't want to. The night had left Sophia undone, her body still humming with the memory of his touch. Wrapped in a linen robe, she joined Andrew on the balcony where the sea stretched endlessly, dark and alive beneath the stars. The table was already set, silverware gleaming, candles flickering in tall glass holders, the soft scent of roasted figs mingling with the salt air they ate. Quietly at first, the silence between them heavy with everything unspoken. Finally, Andrew looked at her, his eyes shadowed. "I wasn't supposed to want you," he said. "From the first day, I noticed your eyes, the way you carried yourself. But I told myself to keep my distance." Sophia set her fork down. "Do you regret it?" He leaned back, studying her as if searching for something in her face. Then, slowly, he shook his head. "No, I regret nothing, but I fear what comes next." The ocean breeze carried his words between them, but her answer was simple. "So do I, and I don't want to stop either." Later, in the master suite, the golden glow of candles lit the stone walls and silk sheets. Andrew's hands were steady as he guided her down, his touch first soothing, then consuming. He was deliberate, as though every kiss, every touch, was a vow. Sophia let herself surrender, mind quiet, body alive, until the only thing that existed was him. When it was over, he pulled her close, their breaths still uneven, his arms firm around her as if he couldn't let go. Sleep found them like that, tangled, vulnerable, together by morning. Sunlight poured through gauzy curtains, warming her skin. Sophia stirred against his chest, realizing with a shock of clarity, this weekend wasn't just an escape. It was the beginning of something she couldn't walk away from. The sheets still smelled of salt, heat, and him. Sophia stretched, her muscles aching in a way that felt both foreign and sweet. But Andrew's side of the bed was cold, empty, her chest tightened. His clothes were gone. So was the robe he had dropped on the floor. The villa, for all its beauty, suddenly felt hollow. On the pillow beside her lay a folded note. With trembling fingers, she opened it. "You will return to work Monday as usual. We do not speak of this at the office. Nothing has changed." The words cut sharper than any blade. Nothing had changed. For her, everything had. Her body remembered. Her heart remembered. But he was already trying to erase it. She showered in silence, dressed in the clothes she had arrived in, and walked out to the waiting car. The driver said nothing. The villa stood behind her, like an illusion she was never meant to touch. She stared out the window the entire ride home, clutching the note as if it could explain the ache she couldn't name. By Monday morning, the world had returned to its usual rhythm. Floor 22 buzzed with routine. But inside Sophia, a storm raged. Andrew hadn't looked at her once, not during the morning meeting, not when she handed him the revised client notes. He was polished, composed, untouchable, the perfect CEO, and she hated him for it. By noon, she couldn't hold it in any longer. Under the excuse of delivering files, she walked straight into his office without knocking. He looked up slowly, calm. As ever, as if her presence meant nothing. "Miss Carter," he said. His voice was clipped, professional. Her pulse hammered. "You said nothing would change," she said, closing the door behind her. "It hasn't." She stepped closer. "You told me you wanted every part of me. You took it and then you left." He stood, placing his pen carefully on the desk, as though steadying himself. "We had an agreement." Her voice broke. "No, you made a rule and you followed it, but not anymore." The words cracked the air like lightning. Andrew rounded the desk, his composure thinning, his eyes burning. He stopped a breath away. "You want me to say it? I want you to feel something." His hands closed around her face, not rough, but urgent, almost desperate. His lips found hers, no longer calculated, no longer controlled. This wasn't performance. This wasn't a game. This was Andrew, undone. It was hungry, raw, real. Andrew pressed her against the wall, lips crashing into hers, hands claiming her, like a man who'd lost control. "You ruined me," he whispered into her mouth, voice breaking. "You touched something I never wanted anyone to touch." His grip tightened at her waist, his breath ragged against her neck. "I wanted to keep you safe," he confessed, "but I don't want safe anymore." Sophia's reply was a kiss, desperate, uncertain, "Then take what you want." That afternoon, the office became their world. He locked the door, drew the blinds, silenced the phones. His desk turned into an altar, papers scattered to the floor, rules torn apart with each touch. He worshipped her slowly, deliberately, every sound she made, every time his name left her lips like a prayer, fueled him until he was trembling with the need to claim her completely. And when he finally did, forehead pressed to hers, voice breaking, he whispered the word she hadn't expected to hear, "Mine." Later, tangled together on the leather couch, her fingers traced his jaw. "What are we doing, Andrew?" "Breaking rules," he said quietly, "until they break us. And if they do," his hands slid beneath her blouse, steady, certain. "Then we build new ones together." She smiled through the fire in her eyes. "That sounds dangerous." His lips brushed her ear. "You're worth it." Weeks blurred into months. Their stolen moments became routine, the brush of her breath in. An elevator, his hand finding hers beneath the table, the electricity that never dimmed. Until one afternoon, sunlight streaming through the boardroom windows, he didn't wait for nightfall. He took her there on the marble table, surrounded by glass and sky, and when she saw herself reflected back, she didn't feel shame. She felt power. She felt loved. A year later, it was no surprise when Sophia Carter became director of design, nor when whispers turned into truth. Her move into the CEO's private penthouse. No one dared voice the rumors, because Andrew Rosenfeld, the man who had never broken a single rule, had broken the only one that mattered. And Sophia, she hadn't destroyed him. She had remade him, not with force, but with silence, with touch, with the way she looked at him like she already knew his choice. At night, when the city lights painted their windows and his hands held her close, she would ask, "Do you regret it?" And his answer was always the same, not words, but a kiss, a pull, a whisper against her. Scars, never. The end.